I like to work with the 3 Ps. Okay, the 3 Ps. Although I'm going to mention right now only 2 because of, I think this is where you are, most of you, but there are 3 Ps. The first P, for the content creation, the first P is publishing. Okay, so content creation is about publishing. What can you publish? Books, absolutely, you can publish a book. What else? E-books, what else? YouTube videos, what else? DVDs is already a product, okay? So I'm more interested in the content, publishing content, although it's okay. Social media does not publishing. What do you publish? Blogs, yes, absolutely. What was it? Articles, absolutely. Articles, papers, write papers, magazine articles. Social media, again, it's a medium, but what are you going to publish there? What is the content? Social media is not content. Tweets is not something that you're going to get paid for that. All right, let's make a list of that, okay? Shall we make a short list of what I find the most valuable? Is that okay? Everything you say is correct. Let me give you the short list that I like and I use all of it, okay? So the first one, and I'm going on purpose from the easy to the hardest. So if you feel like I'm at the beginning and I just want to start easy, book is somewhere in the heavy, in the hard part. Okay, so let's start with the easy. In my opinion, this is only my opinion, the easiest way is to start a blog. Now, we have a whole day in the business campus, a whole masterclass about blogging, so I'm not going to go into that. But the blog is very easy to create, and it does a lot more than just publishing content. You can create a community as a result of that and start having subscribers, etc. But the blog is very easy to do. And in a blog, all you need to do is to write an article, right? It's writing an article every once in a while and publish it as a blog. Today, it's too easy not to do that. If you don't have a blog, start tomorrow. Okay? Now, if we take the same article, or maybe a little bit longer or more detailed, or whatever it is, you can put this article on somebody else's platform. It can be on somebody else's blog, it can be on somebody else's website, it can be on somebody else's magazine. Very, very powerful way. Remember, we're trying to build an expert position. Okay? When you publish it on your own blog, you create a little bit of credibility because of the value of the content. But when you publish it on somebody else's, you got their stamp of approval. Does that make sense? So if you're writing an article, let's say on business issues, and you manage to get it on Managers Online, which is one of those, online website or magazines if you want, then you get a certain credibility because they chose you for that. Now, I don't know a lot of the other places, but this is one of those. Frank Watching, it's in my area. It's also a place where it gets a lot of credibility, if you want. So you can find out in your area of expertise whose website or whose magazine will give you that credibility. And the next level is physical publications. Okay? If you're writing personal development or you're writing for women issue, then go for Happiness. It's the authority right now, I guess, right, as a magazine for this area. Okay, if you're writing something for entrepreneurs, maybe try to put it in the KVK or the ZAK, or I don't know what. I mean, I'm not doing that for a while already because I moved over. But that's what I did for a long time. So writing article. The next one, case studies. Case studies. If you're writing, if you're having coaching or consulting or advising or all kind of stuff like that, you can take a client without all the identifying details, without names and companies and even location. Just say, well, a company came to me, and it's an ICT company that is a small ICT company, came to me with this issue. And I was doing this little investigation, I found out that they have this and this and this challenge. So I offered them to do this and this and this and this. They came back to me and said, let's do it. So I did that, and a few months later, those are the results. This is a case study in a nutshell, right? It's from the problem all the way to the solution. You show what you did without identifying them. This is very, very valuable material that shows you as the expert on that specific issue. And you can publish it, you can give it for people for free, or you can let them download it from your website in return for an email address. Those are all mechanics. But this is something that you have it in your mind. How many of you are working with advising or consulting, this way or another? That's 2/3, if not 3/4 of the room. How many of you have certain clients that different clients came with a similar problem or an issue that you helped solve? It's half the room, if not more, which means that you have classic case studies, because it's not just for that person personally or for that company personally, but it will attract more, or it will answer more people. Does that make sense? You should start it tomorrow. Next client, just make sure that you either record the conversation or you make notes after it. And again, don't use any identifying details. Or ask them, is it okay that I will mention your name? And then use it, and then your credibility goes through the roof. Okay? What we're doing right now, we're writing a book. I don't know if you're aware of that, but OpenSeries is writing right now a book, and we ask our students to share their stories. Their stories from, we're creating the hero story, the hero journey. Don't want to get into that, but from the point where you were successful, then you were not so successful, then you came and found Open Circles, you got some tools, and you're growing. And we got about 100 and something people that told their stories, some really amazing stories. We picked up already 13 stories for the book, but we were so excited with some of the other stories that we're going to find another way to use those too. But right now there are 13 people that were interviewed for this book, and they are telling their story, and it's a case study. It's an absolute case study. And it's not about Open Circles, it's not about even what they learned from us, but because of the context, people will relate it to Open Circles. It will build our credibility also. Does that make sense? You can do that, guys. You can do it. You don't need to be asked for that. Okay, everyone can do that. White papers, that's more a business-to-business kind of a term, or reports. We have tons of those, so you'll have the LinkedIn report, how to do LinkedIn better. We have the networking report, how to do networking better. We have social media report. We have all kinds of those that you can create for your own area of expertise. But this is publishing. You need to put a lot of stuff out there. Ebooks is the next level. So ebook is, 40, 50, 60 pages, so it's a long report if you want, which goes into details into something. And the next one, the next level, and the highest level is, of course, a book. So those are different ways to publish. There's many more. Book will give you the most credibility, but it also takes the most effort to create. Does that make sense? This is the first P. The next P is coming for the delivery of the content. There are many different ways to deliver content. I'm going to talk about one, which is called P. P stands for presenting, or presentations. So if one is publishing, the second one is presenting. There are many ways to present, right? What kind of presentations you're aware of? Yeah, what does it mean? Because I'm giving different presentation. This is a seminar. We do give trainings. We do give workshops. There are differences between them. I don't want to get into that. Those of you that know, you know. But otherwise, it's not so important. But those are type of presentations. But you also have lectures, right? You have lectures, which is different, because a lecture, you just come for an hour, you give your spiel, and you go away. That's a presentation. A speech is even sometimes maybe even shorter than that of a presentation. Okay, those can all be presentations. A television performance, that's also a presentation. Okay, there's many different types of presentation. In the States, for example, radio presentations works very, very well for some people. I don't have the face for a radio, so I wouldn't know. But so there are different types of presentation, and I really highly recommend you, unless you really cannot handle crowds, an audience, I would really recommend you to think about it a serious way. And I'm going to give you now a few tips about presentation, because I think that there's not a lot of more. There is no other way that you can create this authority by having connection with people. You can have a book and you create credibility, and it's fantastic. People will love you and appreciate you and cherish you because you created a great book. But there is no way to put in a book a call to action that will actually get people to do something. And especially you cannot tell them, oh, go and buy my 2,000 euros something just because you put here a page. It just doesn't work this way. Does that make sense? But when you're on stage, when you build up this one-on-one relationship, although it doesn't look like one-on-one, but the idea is to build as much as one-on-one. If we can create a rapport to a level that I can tell you, listen, now what I want you to do is I want you to start taking action. I want you to write the book, or I want to do this, or I want you to buy my training. It doesn't matter. But this you can do in presentation, which you cannot do with a written word, for example. Does that make sense? Okay, so presentation is really important. You don't have to give a training for 1,000 people. If you would tell me a few years ago that I will have to stand in front of 1,000 people, I would freak out. Okay? Even when I was okay, when I was good at stage, that would freak me out, the number. Still, I'm not thinking that I'm so good in front of 1,000 people. One of the reasons why I don't move yet to 10,000 people is because I still need to master the 1,000. To make sure that I reach everybody. And right now it's easy for me with you guys. But when it's another 20 rows, it's a little bit more difficult for me. So, but unless you really have a stage fright that you can't see yourself standing in front of a few people, I would suggest you start doing it. It doesn't matter if it's 5 people, or it's 10, or it's 20. It really doesn't matter, but it's more than one-on-one. Especially for all those of you that work one-on-one, you need to find a way to start talking to more people. Otherwise, you're ripping yourself off. And you're ripping them. Does that make sense? Yes. Anybody wants to know how to deliver some better presentations? Yes. You need to develop what we call a high-value presentation. And this is important. It's not just a presentation. It's a high-value presentation. And it has a few elements that needs to be there. A high-value presentation is not a glorified sales pitch. Some people take it all the way there. They say, okay, I have an hour in front of an audience. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them for 1 hour why what I'm doing is great and why they should take what I have to give them. Okay, that's a sales pitch. That's a glorified sales pitch. And there's a lot of trainings like that being done, especially in the States. That's why the training business in the States is going now under the ground. I mean, in a way, Open Circles have more students today, or can bring bigger rooms, than most of the top trainers in the world. We used to be in Europe, now it's in the world. And it's not because we grew up so fast, but because in America, the industry is under the carpet. And we've been now with the top consultants for the training industry in the States. I'll mention that a little bit later. And they said that there's only 2 companies in the States that manage to bring the amount of people that we're bringing, and most of them don't bring them in the States. They bring it outside of the States. Because what happened is that for years, those trainings became a sellathon. There was 1 hour after 1 hour, every time comes another presenter. He's giving an hour, which is basically 5 minutes of value and 55 minutes of selling. At the end, run to the back, get what it is, and people would buy, get disappointed, or not buy, whatever, and the business just went to the ground. I'm not going to go into details, but we heard some horrifying stories. It's getting there also in Holland. Too many people are starting to deliver very little value. So I suggest that when you do that, you deliver high value. So it's not a glorified sales pitch. If you're giving an hour of presentation, 5 minutes is for the sales. That's it. If I'm giving 2 days of business bootcamp, I will spend 20 minutes or 25 minutes on a sales pitch. That's it. Okay, so that's something to remember. It's okay to give you a sales pitch. It's important to give that. Otherwise, you don't have a business and you don't deliver what you need to deliver them, but it cannot be the most of the presentation. Is that making sense? So it's not a glorified sales pitch. The next one, you need to give your audience something of value. And that's what most people don't understand. Most speakers don't understand. And I'm afraid that many of you that says, I'm a speaker or I'm giving presentation, I'm not sure that you understand that. You need to know what the value means for your audience, and your ideas, your opinions, your concepts, your theories are not having any value to your audience. There is only one thing that has value for your audience, especially in short presentations. If you give a whole day, if I give a whole day and I will give you a part which is theory because I think you need to understand the context, that's okay. But I cannot spend a whole day on that because you will go home with nothing. So the way for you to judge, do I give value, is do you give them something that they can go home and actually do. Actually do. You need to give them something that they can go and do. If you go over, those of you that are giving presentation, if you can go over your presentation and have a look, do you give them anything that they go home and actually do? If not, if it's just concepts and theories, you deliver no value. And you build no expertise. And most experts don't understand. They think it's the opposite. The more concepts, the more theories, the more ideas that I bring, the more expert I look like. No, you don't. What people care is it practical for them. Actually, I'm pretty sure that if I'll ask you right now what was the most valuable part from the whole day up until now, many of you will say that this was the little part before lunch when I gave you this diagram. Because that was practical. You can go home and do that. How many of you would agree? Yes. Okay? So think about it. How can you deliver as much value in a sense of that they can do something with it? Very, very important. The next one, make sure that you consider what are their needs and wants before you talk to them. Because most people are having this speech or lecture that they have to give, and they give it to everybody the same way. Or they change a little bit, tailor it a bit by saying the name of the company or the name of the type of audience that they work with. You need to tailor everything to this audience. That's why for us, we insist on working just with ZZ payers and small business owners, because then I don't need to change anything. I can talk the same way because most of the people are suffering from the same thing. But if I would want the same information to deliver in a big company, I need to change everything. I need to tailor it. Does that make sense? Let me give you an example very quickly. We had a student that was, it was years and years ago, and he had a store, I think it was a hardware store, something like Praxis, but don't catch me on that, something like that. But the small one, the local one. And he would, his business model at one point, he changed it to, instead of selling stuff on the store, he would start giving those presentations, and he would put the little ads in the paper, in the local paper, saying, in this Friday, in this coffee shop or in this restaurant, there will be a lecture about safety at home. So if you're interested in learning how to protect your home for young kids, making sure that nothing would happen to them, come to this lecture. Something like that, very short, 1-inch ad. And then you would get 8, 10, 12 parents that will come here and they would want to listen on what can happen. And he would give them for 45 minutes valuable information about what can happen, what happens if the kids will fall from the stairs and the bathroom things and the sharp corners and everything. And he would tell them, this is what can happen and you should take care of that. And at the end, all he did is would give them, if you need one of those, then come to my shop, and he gave them a card. Does that make sense? It's pretty basic. He didn't sell anything. He just told them, if you need one of those, to protect the corners, to protect the stairs, whatever it is, come to my shop and I'll help you with that. Now, he wouldn't close business on the spot. It's not like me sending him, okay, everybody goes to the bike, you get a special deal for the, for the angles for the thing. But he would just make it available, and what happens, usually they wouldn't buy until one of their kids fell. Right? That's what happens. The kid fell, now they are, who are they going to call? Him, right? Ghostbusters. I mean, they're not going to go to Praxis, they're going to go straight to him. And that's what they did. But what was interesting is that he had different target audience. So he would put in the ad safety at home for parents with young children, but sometimes he would change it and he would put safety at home for the elderly. Right? So then those people would come, it will be usually the same people in a demographics, but they are now interested about safety of their parents, not of their kids, right? So then he would talk to them about sleeping in the bathroom, and I don't know exactly, but this kind of stuff. And so he would change his presentation totally, depends on who is his target audience. Does that make sense? Yeah. But the pitch was at the end always the same. If you need me, then this is my card. And that's how he grew his business. That's the only way, that's the only promotion he ever did. High value presentation. Does that make sense? Yeah. Can you do that? Can you find one thing, one of those 6 things that you had, that you can make a 45 minutes presentation about? Yes. Can you? Yes. All right, so what do? If you never did, and you don't want to jump into too deep in the pool, then what you do is you go to places where they're looking for speakers, like you. They don't look for professional speakers, they look for professionals that know what they're talking about, give a little presentation. The best place is called service clubs. Okay, those are the Rotaries, and the Lion Clubs, and the Krings, or whatever you call them here in Holland. They have it in every corner of the, in every neighborhood, you will have one of those. And what you need to do is to go to this Rotary Club, to talk to the chairwoman, and tell them, listen, I have this lecture about safety at home. Would it be interesting for your for your club, 20, 30 people? Yes, it would be interesting. You ask them, when do you want me to come and talk? And she'll say, next Wednesday? Always. Because those chairwomen, they ran out of ideas about 6 years ago. It's true. Anybody in Rotary or in Lions or what like this as a member, you know what I'm talking about? Is that true or what? I mean, they ran out of the ideas a long time ago. So if you go to one of those, you're not going to get paid for that. You're not going to make lots of money, but you start building this expert position. And you give their cards. So now those people know about you. But more interesting, you're going to get a flag. That's what I used to get. They give you a flag or a pen or something as a thank you because they cannot pay you, right? Seriously, no, I used to get those flags, so I used to have all those Rotary clubs from all over with a flag, and sometimes a pen, once I got a bottle of wine. But anyway, so they give you a little gift. But here's what is most important if you want to do it right. I want to give you something practical, right, to go home with. So when you do that the first time, you go to this chairman or chairwoman and ask them, was it good for you? Yes, it was good for me, yeah? Because you're going to do it good. I mean, it's not so difficult if you know what you're talking about. Then you tell them, do you know any one of the other clubs that might be interested in a similar lecture? And they will always say, yes, and they will say, I will recommend you. And what they do, because they're all connected, they will just pick up the phone or send an email to everybody else, and suddenly you're flooded with invitation. I used to do it for years in order to promote our trainings, still in Israel, and it works like a charm.